Hi friends, today I am going to show you some basic watercolor techniques. We're going to go over 5 watercolor techniques today. First one, we're going to start really basic and do a wet on wet technique. So Close to My Heart has just brought out watercolors and they are fabulous, as well as watercolor paper and some paintbrushes. I highly recommend these items because they have really added a fun and creative element to my scrapbooking and card making. And with the techniques I'm going to show you in this video series, you're going to be able to do so much more. So let's talk about wet on wet. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a paintbrush. You can see mine here. I've got a little cup with some water in it. And you're going to simply wet the paper, prepping your surface. This is the basic watercolor technique. Next, I'm going to pick up some paint. And you'll have to excuse that my paints are a little messy. I let my daughter play in them. And then I'm going to take the paint over back and forth to where I have already wet my paper. Now you can see this is a really soft, it's even hard to see in the light. It's a really soft look, not super bright colors. So that is a wet on wet technique. Very soft, very watercolor-like. So now I'm going to clean my brush and I'm actually going to quickly dry it off on a towel so that it's more dry. The next technique I want to show you is a dry brush. So I'm going to pick up just a touch of paint, enough to make my paint come up off of the palette, and underneath my wet I'm going to do a dry brush. So you'll notice for this one I did not pre-wet my surface, and now you're starting to see much more of the pink compared to the wet on wet. So a dry brush gives you a more focused, intense color, whereas a wet on wet technique is a very soft watercolor look. So you can mix those up depending on what you're wanting to do. The next technique I want to show you is called the spray technique. So this one's a lot of fun, and you can't do this one right and you can't do it wrong. So it's pretty easy to do. I'm going to pick up some color just like this, and then I'm going to flick my brush. I'm going to pick up more of the same color. Very a la Jackson Pollock for anybody who's familiar with his artwork. You can mix in other colors or you can stick with just the one. It's completely up to personal preference. So that is the spray technique. Very easy, and it means you can do with something you already own, a technique that otherwise you may need to buy other products for. So if you have our watercolors, you can still do a spray technique. You don't need to also purchase maybe our spray pens and our re-inkers. The next technique I want to show you is ombre, or however you want to say it. For this one, I'm going to use our oranges and our yellows. And I just want to point out how on our paint palette, the colors are all organized in a way that makes an ombre technique really easy to use. You can start from one side and work your way to the darker side and get a really pretty look really quickly. So I'm going to quickly wet part of my surface. And then starting with a light orange, I'm just going to paint some of my surface, and then I'm going to go back to the next color and I'm going to get more paint and I'm going to work it up into the last color I had. So here I'm going back for more, going over here, working it up. So because I'm using brighter colors now, it's a little more easier to see what's going on. Here's one that's more browny orange, working it up. And then I'm actually going to skip this one and go right to this one because I think it would be a better fit, and work that one up. So that is a way you can play around with that. That kind of gives you the idea of how to get an ombre look. This one up here didn't come out very dark. So what I would do is probably go back and add some color. The great thing about watercolor is you have time to go back. You can always go back and do some more. You just need a little bit of water and you can rework the paint you've already started working with. Okay, last technique, and by far my favorite, is a watercolor burst. So for this one, you can do I'm not going to prep my surface, so it's not a wet surface ahead of time. It's more of a dry surface. And I'm just going to go like this. You could call it like a splooshing or a smooshing technique, and it gives you kind of that burst look. Next, I'm going to get a more intense pink. I'm going to do it again beside it, and I think I want to get even darker, so I'm going to go to a really dark purple. And there's no right or wrong to this technique. Let's add in some blue. You can add whatever colors you want. I've done a few things where I used like a rainbow palette, and it's looked really nice. And then you can even, once it's dry, completely dry, you can stamp on top of it. And I can actually show you a sample right here, a little sample I did of the watercolor burst where I stamped the word love on top of it once it was dry. So that is 5 techniques using our amazing watercolors. If you're wanting to purchase these, you know where to visit, braymontgomery.ctmh.com. And for more ideas and inspirations, go to brayer.com. Thanks for watching.